My name's Tom Fury. I'm a business relationship manager within the IT&D service. So we have a special guest today who's going to talk to us about the Digital City programme and the associated roadmap. I'll hand you over to Raj Mack in a minute. Obviously, this is quite important for us, and particularly on the back of the work that IT&D have done with the city on the digital strategy that's now in place, and we have our own program of work that we're just embarking on. But you know, it's really important that we understand what's going on across Birmingham, the Birmingham region, in that respect as well, and even wider than that. But obviously, the focus today will be on the Digital City programme itself, and I'll hand you over to Raj Mack. In terms of questions, we'll try and keep those to the end if we can. But if there's any particular points that you want to make, if you pop them in the chat, and then I'll try and feed them in maybe into Raj's presentation at the relevant point. Is that okay, Raj?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Tom, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to present to you today. I'm sure a lot of you probably have heard about the work that we're doing around the Digital City programme, and it probably is a pain to you at the moment. And what we felt was this was an opportunity to really talk to you about what we're beginning to develop. It is a nascent project at the moment. It only got approved by Cabinet in April, so it is an emerging programme, but we've done a lot of work to try and stabilise it and get some initial thought leadership in terms of what we should do and could do. So as Tom has mentioned, this programme has just been set up. It is there to support the wider city agenda and enable the city to become much more sustainable and economic growth capabilities for us to ensure that we are supporting our citizens and our businesses at the same time supporting the council. So there is a good link between what we're doing both within the council and the city. So as you've all probably heard, we have the digital council strategy, which is a focus on transforming the council IT systems and business areas and that whole transformation agenda. And what this is the parallel programme that will support the wider city. So it does involve working with lots of external organisations, working with city partners from the voluntary sector to community sector to the universities, and has a very wide remit in terms of type of things that we want to cover. It is setting out the ambition for the city. It was important that we are seen as the second city to show that we have a digital ambition, that we have ambitions that go beyond the day-to-day activities of what the city does, and how we can show the world that we are aspiring to be at a footing with some of the best in the world, and make sure that we have the skills, the capability and the infrastructure to support that ambition. We want to maximise the value of data, technology and infrastructure, and we want to really inspire innovation across the city. So that's what we're trying to do. And as I say, both those programs, the council strategy and the Digital City programme, are the two things working in tandem to enable that to happen. Clearly, what we do at the city level will impact on council services, and already there are a number of council services working with us, even though they might be seen as external, but they would impact on their service areas. So the two areas aren't divorced, they are absolutely interlinked. And it's not the first time that we've had this ambition, and we really have got a good legacy and credibility in the smart city world, in the digital world. Some of you around might recall the Digital Birmingham Partnership that was really starting back in 2006. And believe it or not, in 2006, we were only talking about how do we get people to take up broadband. We still had dial-up back in that day, and that's what the program was. And it morphed and evolved to start doing all sorts of different stuff around digital technologies, from infrastructure, around innovation, all those different things. But it was ahead of its game, ahead of its time, sorry, and it really started bringing the city to life in terms of what its credibility is. And it's hard to believe that we're only talking, what, 18 years and where we are with digital and data now compared to just talking about dial-up. This is the speed at which innovation is taking place. This is the speed at which we need to respond and be more agile about some of the opportunities that are coming our way. We recognized even in those days that it wasn't just about digital, it was the application of digital and application of data and those applications that made us smart. So in 2012 to 2016, we set up the Smart City Commission, which was really how we utilize digital technologies much more effectively. And it led to a roadmap that was seen by the rest of the UK as the roadmap to follow for the rest of the country. And it was promoted and badged across the UK as that benchmark for all other cities to follow. So we really showed some great leadership at that time and really rebuilt on that capability. Clearly, as time has gone on, there was an abeyance in some of the work that took place. We had the sort of restructuring of the council in terms of bringing IT back in-house. And at that time, we lost a little bit of our focus and our leadership in that area. So what really sparked it off again was the pandemic. The pandemic really changed the way local authorities and other public sector organisations began to see technology. They saw it as a real opportunity to change the way processes work, that we needed to have models that were different to the traditional stuff that we had. And really, Peter Bishop then really supported us in establishing an initial approach in terms of how do we get to start thinking about digital and how do we involve our digital city. So in October 2020, we began to think about how we get Birmingham and again Birmingham partners to come together to start thinking about the things that we need to do. That led in January 21 to the cabinet report, which was Invest in Our Future. And again, that really iterated the importance of digital technology and the need to have a digital innovation team that recognise the pace of change, that recognise that the council cannot stand still and the council needs to innovate at a pace that's going on with the environment around us. So they really promoted that and supported the development of that innovation team. And this is part of the stuff that we're doing now. In August 2021, we saw the importance of this and we appointed some consultants. And we appointed the consultants because what we wanted was an independent view. We wanted a view that was credible, one that was brought in by our partners, and it showed that it wasn't the city council sitting in a locked room, locked away somewhere, coming up with all these ideas. It was going to be whatever the of the city and for the city, and that's the approach we adopted. This also led to the creation of digital inclusion strategy, and some of you were being involved in developing that. That was such an important strategy that the council took forward, recognising again how important digital had become to people's lives and the way they access services. And we produced one of the first digital city strategy, inclusion strategies that the city had ever produced, and one that's been taken up and owned by our citizens and our businesses out there. And they are now actively working in terms of delivering that. We've had the council strategy, as you've seen, and again, this mirrors very much the type of activities we're doing. And now we have the digital city programme. And it should be mentioned, it's not a strategy. It is definitely a programme that puts together a roadmap that enables us to move forward and identify some of the key things that we need to be doing. Really good legacy, really good strong strengths to build on for us as a city. And why is it important? And so most of you would know this, so I'm sorry if I'm teaching this to kids, but we have seen at a global level that technology is not just an enabler, it is pushing change, it is driving change. Seven companies around the world are responsible for the 10% GDP of the whole world. It is incredible how technology companies are changing the way things are happening. On the social and the skill side, we know that by 2025, 44% of jobs will have to change due to, and the skills level will have to change due to automation, and that's coming from the World Economic Forum. So it's a real challenge for us around cities we've already got challenges around finding the right skills across the sectors. And clearly the environmental impacts. We have a state of emergency, climate change emergency. We have a really strong and powerful Route to Zero program, and we know we need to use technology to deliver those. And interestingly, you know, the carbon savings that the lockdown created for us in 2020, we would have to repeat that saving that we achieved as a result of lack of traffic on the road for the next until 2050 to achieve the same level of savings in order to meet our target. It's a huge amount of challenges moving forward. So we can't boil the ocean. So for us, what we're trying to do in Birmingham is focus on a number of key areas. So for us, the most important 3 areas are the economy. We want to transform our economy. We know there is an equity investment deficit for Birmingham. We're not achieving the level of investment that we could get. And we know there is a productivity gain in the city compared to other similar cities across the UK. So it's a real opportunity for us to address some of those things. We know in our communities there's a huge skills deficit. 21% of our citizens are digitally excluded, and 56% of our workforce do not have the right basic digital essential skills to be effective in the workplace. And that's a massive challenge for us as a city to move that further forward. And clearly from the environmental stuff, we know we really need to change our climate change capabilities and measure that much more effectively, and put in those applications and services that allow us to do that. So we are going to make sure we are measuring this, and some of our key targets that will measure our success is about ensuring that we attract and accelerate digital investment in the city. And already we've started talking to infrastructure providers, investment house, pension funds, who are already talking to us about putting their money in the city if we create the right environment and create the right opportunities for them. So massive opportunities to bring hundreds of millions of pounds of investment into the city. We want Birmingham to be seen as that place for experimentation and a test bed for new pilots, new opportunities, new entrepreneurship activities, create that environment. We want to be the playground where different entrepreneurs, different organisations can bring their toys to show Birmingham how it can be really different in terms of its capabilities, but also show the world how inventive, how ambitious, and how creative Birmingham cities and Birmingham businesses can be. We want to help transform the council services, and already a number of the projects we're doing hit on council services, whether those transportation services, whether those are housing services, whether they're waste services. Digital technologies that are in the city will impact on our council services. And most of all, we want to establish Birmingham as that leading digital city across the world, seen by our peers as being leading and seen by our other organisations as a place that they want to invest in, because that, and we're doing it under the brand of Digital Birmingham, which has quite good credibility, both at a national level, but also at an international level. And we've already seen now that since we've revived this programme, other cities from across the world wanting to talk to us about our smart city plans and then sharing their plans with us, a real opportunity to collaborate on the world stage for this. And yet, while I have talked about digital and I've talked about data and I've talked about infrastructure, this program is not about technology per se. It really is about making and improving the outcomes for citizens and businesses. We want to improve the way they live their lives, the way they learn, the way they work, so we enjoy the growth and enjoy every facet of the city, so they can really improve those capabilities for them, and we can create the right environment for them to really be part of the city and be part of the growth and the success of the city. And as I mentioned, what we wanted to do was make sure that this was of the city. We wanted to make sure that we took a user-led approach and make sure we tried to identify the right issues and the right problems, so that this was seen and bought, and we had buy-in from our partners across the different sectors. So what we did, we engaged with over 40 different organisations, from the universities, from big corporates, from the voluntary sector, from other public sector organisations, to get their views of what they felt were the frustrations, what are the things that needed potentially mending, what are the things that enabled us to be more collaborative and more cohesive in the way we address things. And on the right-hand side, you see a whole series of different activities, and I won't go through all of them, but just focus on things like leadership. They felt that there was good leadership within the different sectors. However, what was missing was a common shared strategic vision that enabled us to actively work as a city together. And that's one of the things they thought were really necessary. They talked about trust. They felt that there was a lack of trust with citizens and businesses in the institutions of the city. So whether that's the public sector, whether it's other organisations, They believed that we needed to build that trust, and we need to build activities and projects that enable those trusts to be rebuilt again. And they talked about coordination, that lack of coordination, lots of different projects taking place across the city, lots of different platforms being created, and even competing technologies sometimes across it. And what we were lacking is that ability to coordinate our activities, share our experiences, understand what different partners were doing, and then bring some of that commonality and open standards and joint standards in terms of how we develop things. So those were some of the issues that they identified and some of the things that we're trying to address with this program. What they also did was try to identify some of the key growth areas for the city. So our program is about enablement and helping them and others in the city to grow, and not necessarily do everything ourselves. And what they felt was some of the underpinning activities that we needed to look to do across the city. So some of the key things that were identified were around basic connectivity, get that infrastructure right, make sure we have the right things in place to enable business growth to take place and access of services. Data sharing. Smart cities are underpinned by data sharing. How we share that data, where we get it from, where it's stored, how it's reused is really important, and getting the right principles of that is absolutely essential. And then other ones that you won't be surprised about: community-led innovation, net zero. Vertical food was another one I'll talk about a bit later, and then clearly things around supporting SMEs to be more entrepreneurial, creating the right environment for them, supporting growth and employment in the city, and creating that youth aspiration. So often you've heard the term, we are the youngest city in Europe, but what does that actually mean? How are we actually utilising that capability? How are we enabling those voices to be heard, and how are we enabling an understanding of the types of things that they want to see happening across the city, things that will shape their lives, and what can we do to support that capability? So those were some of the challenges that we had. But also at the same time, we wanted to make sure we had a benchmark. We wanted to make sure we understood where Birmingham was as a smart digital city. And we wanted to benchmark ourselves with some of the cities that were comparable to Birmingham in some way, whether it's through ethnicity, whether it's through some of its priorities, whether it's through its population growth, those type of things. So we selected a number of organizations. We also selected Singapore, which isn't similar to Birmingham, but it is seen by a lot of world leaders as one of the leading cities on digital and smart cities. So we wanted to benchmark ourselves against that. And we benchmarked ourselves against a number of pillars, from strategy and policy, from citizen-centered services, from digital and data and infrastructure, and some of the sustainable developments across the world. What other things are there? And we were given a rating of 2, and this is done independently by an organisation called the Connected Places Catapult that sort of assesses and pushes innovation across the public sector. And we got a rating of 2, which does sound bad, but it isn't. It is on par with a lot of those other cities out there. Clearly, we want to aspire to be much higher than that. And a 2 means that we have some good strategy and there's some good evidence, but we really want to have to make sure that we have projects and activities that are evolving and changing as our needs change, and moving that forward. So so we have a benchmark, and this is really gives us that opportunity to really show the world how we are progressing and benchmark ourselves against some of the best in the world. So what we've done then is taken a combination of what we've heard from our stakeholders, the things that they wanted, the things that they believed need to happen, combined it with that maturity framework. So we have an incredibly evidence-based approach in terms of what we knew, how we need to do it, and some of the priorities we need to do. We've come up with a whole series of activities that need to be developed as a city, not on our own, but as a city, prioritize those. And what they've also recommended was to have a good governance in place, to try and address some of the issues and the problems and challenges that were highlighted by the stakeholders. So they've recommended a governance structure. And this is the kind of governance structure that we're trying to put in place, a digital board for the city that reports into the city board, and the city partnership board is that board that sets the city challenges. So this has credibility, so we're reporting into that, and will be addressing some of these issues to support the city capability around that digital board. And that digital board will provide us with thought leadership, it will provide us with horizon scanning, but it'll also provide us that opportunity to create those champions that will champion Birmingham, not only here, but across the world through their networks, their connections, and attract that digital investment into the city. And it will also provide oversight into some of the projects that we're doing to make sure they stay on track and they are delivering to the city requirements. And this is it. This is an initial snapshot of some of the key themes that we are delivering on and some of the key projects that we've identified. So clearly the first structure is around digital leadership and governance. So we've put a program together to make sure we have the right capacity, right people in place, and that also includes the development of a digital innovation team. So I've been lucky enough to get the post at the head of that team, and I'm now actively recruiting that team that will provide us the capacity to deliver this really wide-ranging program of activities. And together we are already working with a number of organisations, external organisations, that are helping us bring the right organisations together to provide that digital governance board. The second two areas is around creating that enabling environment, the digital infrastructure, and already we are doing programs that are full fibre options. What is that capability? How do we roll out full fibre? Because we recognise that although the city isn't there to create new applications and stuff, we have experts out there that we need to create that enabling environment and infrastructure. So we're trying to push out full fibre across the city. That'll accelerate things like 5G capabilities, the rollout of autonomous vehicles, the use of drone technologies, and all those different clever applications that need faster, low latency, reliable connectivity. If we have that infrastructure in place, we can then pilot a lot of those things and embed those and accelerate the opportunities for Birmingham. And through all that process, we've got all the different things. We're looking at how we can roll out 5G and small cell deployments and different activities around that sort of digital foundations stream. Data sharing, as I mentioned before, so important, and what we're trying to do is establish a data charter. We know that data is really important, but we know the frustrations with it. We can't access it, it's in the wrong formats, different organisations are holding on to it, we can't share it, there's little link interoperability. So that data charter will help us pull together different partners and work together and say, these are the principles in which we're going to share data, not just with the public sector, but with the private sector. And I'm really glad to report that we've already started talking to a number of really forward-thinking developers who've created their platforms and are now talking to us to say, how will they share their data, their commercial data with us, and what we will do to make that platform that enables different organisations to access it, make it available, and reuse it to create new applications. It's a massive opportunity for the city for that. And linked to that, we are setting up a data working group. We know there are a number of experts out there who've got the knowledge, the expertise, the capabilities of thinking through what should be the right standards, what should be the interoperability layers, and what do we need to do to make sure the different platforms will link together and work together, because everybody will have a platform of some kind and we'll never stop that. But our challenge is to make sure there is standardization and that interoperability that enables that data to be used at the right time for the right reasons, and we can rely on that data. And already, based on those two principles, we are starting to create digital twins. Now, for those who don't know what digital twins, these are visualizations of the real world in a virtual capability so that we can test, model, challenge different types of activity, de-risk them, and give people options to understand what that visualization means, what does that regeneration mean, what does that project mean for you as a citizen or for you as a business owner. So those are opportunities that we're creating, and you can do digital twins around all sorts of different things. The work around the zero net transition is working with the housing team. Already we're already working with do the pilot within the housing sector to put in instrumentation, smart boilers, smart IoT devices that will give people the information to support their behavior change. And in the world of the cost of living crisis, to have that information, to be able to control your devices, monitor your devices, for citizens will be hugely important, but also at the same time, it will support the council to understand what its devices are doing, the maintenance issues around that. If there are damp conditions that we can detect earlier, we can stop those problems. If there are boiler maintenance that we can identify, rather than buying one boiler, we can buy multiple boilers because we know they're about to need replacing. So all those maintenance capabilities, and there's proven business cases to support how that community-led innovation is something that clearly as a council we really want to push. It is something that our councillors have said is one of the most important things. And what we're trying to do with that is make sure that we've got platforms that enable us to understand what citizens need and make sure we link our communities and our community projects onto a platform that exposes them to big corporates so they can be a funding opportunity. So almost a matchmaking type of approach that enables those local, hyper-local opportunities to be exposed. And because what we have seen, and many big organisations come in and they don't know what to do with some of their CSR funds. If we can create that environment and match them to that, that's a massive opportunity for them. And we want to do something similar for young people as well. For young people, we're looking at how we create that platform for kids as young as 5 to work up to 18 to have a say, for them to put up ideas, to put up to the big corporates or to other organisations, but also help us understand some of their aspirations for the city and get them to be more participative in some of the developments for the future. So those are the things that we're trying to do around that. And clearly we've done digital inclusion and we've got that well implemented in doing that. We're also putting broadband into tower blocks to make sure that those citizens that are most vulnerable and were disconnected, certainly during the pandemic, will have access to broadband and make sure they don't feel excluded in any way, and will support the levelling up agenda around that process. The vertical farm is something quite creative. We're looking to work with Tisley, and this is what some people might call the sort of circular economy approach. Clearly there is heat, energy, waste coming off Tisley, and what we want to do is create a vertical farm there. This could be around about £20 million investment. We're talking to a company who wants to do that investment, and what they will do is they will grow those foods that are difficult to get, that we're importing from overseas, and clearly there is a carbon footprint in terms of all the inward importing costs we have and the distribution costs. So we want to try and do that at a local level, support the local economy, and because there will be automation in there, it'll create a new trend of new jobs capability for the people working in that area, as well as low-level jobs as well, that enable people to enjoy things working in those part-time workers who might want to have that opportunity to work in a green environment within an inner city type of approach. So a real opportunity there. And we are doing a number of pilots and projects. This morning I came back from a Smart Cities roundtable where we talked about using clever software, not having to buy new devices or sensors, but using your own mobile phones, just put software on them to be able to detect potholes in the road degradation, signs that aren't in the right place, traffic works that aren't in the right place. So yes, we are told when works are happening or when they should happen. The reality of the ground is that they're not happening at the times they said they're going to happen. They're not happening at the times they should be happening, and they're not even happening in some of the places they said. And this software mounted on in cameras on your own smartphone will be able to capture that through automation, capture what's happening across the city, and it'll give you the intelligence to know where potholes are, where signage is meant to be, but also through algorithms and clever monitoring, it will start giving you predictive capabilities about what the road degradation is. Is this road likely to be degraded? Is this pothole getting worse? Where we need to intervene. So moving away from those scheduled programs of maintenance and start looking to be more proactive and really intervene in those areas around that. And that's a pilot that we've kicked off within the city. We're doing TIPS, which is Public Services Challenge, digital innovation in the public services, that we're looking at how we take a challenge-based approach to that, and we're already working with organisations like Brentwood Science Park to bring those entrepreneurs to help us against those different types of challenge. We're working with BT to put in real-time sensors that gives us information about air quality at that moment in time. Most of the data that we have is retrospective or time delayed. This will give us a real opportunity to tell people what's happening in their locality, when they need to go out, when the air is pure, and that's something that we can really build on. And we're also looking to develop a carbon trading platform, and some people may have heard about carbon credits and stuff like that. There aren't any mechanisms in place, so we're looking to pilot a capability that enables us to measure and monitor what our carbon footprint is, measure that, get that baseline, and where we make carbon savings, create that data, that platform that we can then exchange our carbon credits with other organisations to achieve the overall city capabilities. We're creating a digital twin, working with Birmingham University and Siemens to create a virtual replica of the Tisley plant, all the differences, so we can look at model different energy requirements across the city. Really innovative approach, and we'll be one of the first cities in the world to create something that, should that come off, but we are in development stage at doing that at the moment, and clearly there are other activities. And we're also working with a number of other organisations. The West Midlands Combined Authority is clearly a big player in this, so we are working with them to support our bid for the West Midlands Smart City region. The government has announced this region, the West Midlands, to be a smart city region, but they haven't told us what it is. So they're leaving us to define, and some of these programs will fall into that category that we're pushing to make sure that we are seen as one of the leading cities in this area. And clearly we're doing a number of other activities around promotions, working across the country in terms of promoting this service and putting Birmingham on that firm footing as seen as a leading digital city. And so,
Raj,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I just thought I might give you a chance to catch your breath a little bit after that. So we have had a couple of questions. Do you mind taking a couple of questions now?
Yeah, sure.
You know, and then we'll move on. Is that okay? So
yeah.
We've had a question from Hannah.
Hello. Yeah, just it sounds great, Raj, and it's some really exciting stuff, and great to see this kind of being progressed since the last time I was sort of in the room with you. I just wondered, and I can't remember if we touched on this last year, but I just wondered if you had considered the sort of donor economic sort of model and how that we might be able to leverage that. I was just thinking this particular program on a page slide you've got just feels like it's sort of in that space. So just wondered if you'd been in touch with the team over there, or had sort of considered how you might sort of because I know there are some councils, I'm trying to remember which one. There's one other in the West Mids that's definitely been using the model. So just a question on that, really.
No, we haven't. As I say, this program only officially launched in April, so it's quite a nascent project at the moment. So we are looking at ways to improve our approach on this. As I say, this is our first pitch in terms of trying to bring together all the different activities across the city. So if there are other ways of doing this and other ways to measure success, that's exactly what we want to be doing. And the reason we're doing these show and tells and talking to other organisations is to learn from others to see how best we can take some of these things further forward. And it is useful just to mention in this is quite an ambitious program. And as I've said, the role of the city in this is varied. There will be some activities that we will do ourselves, clearly, but there are lots of other activities where we will just be the facilitator, or we will provide some seed corn funding to enable it to happen. So this is very much a city collaboration rather than a Birmingham City Council approach. I don't know if that answers your question, Hannah, but yeah, we're open to all sorts of opportunities to do this differently.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Raj.
Thanks, Hannah. We've had a question. You mentioned about your new position in the team. A question about recruitment and whether there be any opportunities available to people.
Yes,
maybe.
Yeah. So at the moment we have a structure for the team. I think there's about five members of staff. We are looking for people like senior service designers. We are looking for program managers. We're looking for people who are user researchers, as well as people who can help us market, as well as grant funders, people who can write good bids. So we're working on the job description on those, and we're hoping that we can sort of prioritize certainly the sort of delivery manager, program manager role in this as a secondment opportunity, if that's possible. So we are trying to get that in place. As I say, there's a lot of projects that are beginning to start taking place, and we need some resources to help take those further forward.
Okay, and the last question, I don't know whether this might have been answered, James. You were asking about a scenario that would be useful to test through digital twinning.
Yeah, so that I asked the question before Raj mentioned Tisley.
Yes.
Before you mentioned Tisley, Raj, but I just wondered if you could expand on that a little bit and just say exactly what, what's the point of digital twinning in relation to Tisley? What's it going to do?
So there's lots of different scenarios on that. So we've chosen Tisley only because of the energy management capabilities and the importance of that. So there's lots of different use cases for a digital twin. For example, planners can use it. So if you model an area of the city or Birmingham, you can look at to see how you can put a new building there, what impact of that new building would be, what the sizing could be, how it would impact on the environment, what kind of structures it needs. All that can be modeled in a safe environment. so you can understand the impacts and understand what the level of investment is. It could also be used by potential investors to understand what's already happening in the city, understand where their development could be put in, and they can shape it, model it, and see how it would work for them, and it would de-risk that opportunity for them. It could work on things like education things, understanding how different education provisions could be made, where different types of services could be mapped out. It provides that visualization. Often when you see plans that they're on 2D paper or on sketches and people can't visualize what it means, it would really change the way we actually consult with people. They were given an opportunity to walk through, fly through some of these things through using things like mixed reality, so mixed augmented reality, which could be the real buildings against what could be planned, so people would understand what this new development could mean for them, what services it would provide, and how those services linked in. So that there are huge amounts of opportunities around that, and we're only scratching the surface in terms of what we could do. It could do traffic modelling, environmental monitoring, air pollution modelling. It could do all of those type of things, and it's testing different scenarios. So it risks investment, de-risks investment, and it creates new opportunities to think differently about how a city can be operated and changed without physically changing and the costs involved in doing that. I don't know if that answers your question.
Thanks, Raj. Yeah, really interesting that. Cheers.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay, well, if Raj, if you want to, we have had a couple more questions, but if you want to carry on, and then we'll try and make sure that we've got at least 5 minutes at the end for any further questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, we're coming to the end of it now, hopefully.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, and the important thing to say is this is not a program happening in isolation. What we've tried to do with these projects is that we've made sure they link to Birmingham City Council's levelling up strategies. So there's a number of accelerators we put in there as a city, and one of the accelerators is delivering the green and digital infrastructure. So this program is very much about supporting our levelling up agenda, and certainly at the city board level, we're trying to deliver to the grand challenges. So what does it mean for some of these projects? What we've done high-level business proposals, we've done investment cases, and what we believe in delivering some of these projects, we will get a £1 billion gross economic uplift for the city. And what that means from our maturity assessment, it gives us an uplift both in our strategy and governance. It brings us up to a 4 to level us up with places like Singapore, and also in others, a city-centered approach and data, it brings us an extra point. So if we get this right, we will improve the digital maturity standing of the city as viewed by others. So it's a real good approach to that. And I won't run through this, but this is just to show the progress to date. So these are some of those projects now mapped out against an innovation framework that we've been using. And the ones that you don't see mapped here are because they're in the backlog at the moment, so we've not really done anything with them, but these are the ones that we've started. So you see a whole series of projects that are in the discovery phase at the moment. We're trying to see how we can move those forward. Are they worth doing? Who are the right people to do it? There are some in the definition stage. We're developing those, and then that development stage. And clearly that process is an evolving process. As we develop the capability, we might need to change the definition. And I'd probably say this is where some of that capability around the digital twins is ebb and flowing before we go into delivery. And then at the top, you have some in delivery. And the ones that are in delivery is that there are actively people working on making those happen. And that's what I mean. And there are different phases to the delivery, and some of that delivery is around modelling what it looks like. And I have put a timeline here at 5 years. So this program, it is a 10-year program to match that decade of golden opportunities for the city. So this is what it's really based on, is creating those golden opportunities for the city. And these projects are our initial set of projects that we have. But what we are seeing is the more we are talking to the market, the more organisations that are seeing what we're doing are coming to us with new ideas, new opportunities to see how we can actually progress this project. But it will go through this sort of innovation framework. So we are only doing those projects that have real value to the city, that has an impact on the outcomes we want to achieve, and not doing innovation for innovation's sake. And just wanted to share this with Digital Birmingham being this kind of the rough diamond in the middle there. These are all the different organisations that we have either a foothold in, we sit on as a board member. So we are influencing and learning from these different organisations. On the left-hand side, these are a lot of the West Midlands groups that are shaping the digital agenda in somewhere, and we are influencing and working with them to do all sorts of different things. On the right-hand side is where we're having impacts at a national level, so that Birmingham is seen to be a national leader in some of these, or at least contributing to the agenda, so that begins to show that we've got full leadership there and we're learning from others around the world. I just wanted to play this quick video to you. It's only a few minutes long, but I just wanted to prove that we are not talking about this alone. This is not pie in the sky thinking. The organisation that's talking here is Innovate UK, and Innovate UK is the government's leading innovation body, which is working with public sector organisations to get them to think differently, and they have their vision of what's going to happen in the future. And a lot of the technologies they're showing here, some of these are already happening. So I'll play this very quickly to you. Hope you can all hear that. It's interesting that a lot of that technology is already in the marketplace, and it's interesting. I was at a conference, at a roundtable this morning around smart travel, and already we are talking about how a city could be transformed in the future, where we have autonomous vehicles which have the knowledge and intelligence built into them to know when to turn left, that tell you where they are. So will we ever need traffic systems anymore? Will we need signage in the city so we could get rid of all that clutter as autonomous vehicles know where they're going, and we've got everything built into the car in terms of that technology? So a massive transformation opportunity moving forward if we have the right systems in place. So just to conclude, I mean, one of the things that we are aiming to do is to make sure we have an instrumented city where we can then create the platforms for others to innovate and deliver different things, whether that's smart grids, whether it's smart services, health services, autonomous vehicles, or drone monitoring. And we've already seen in Coventry some really clever stuff around drones, how they're changing the business models of service delivery, and there's lots of things that we can do around all of that. So that was my sort of presentation in a nutshell. As I say, it is still quite a nascent project. We are developing the capabilities, and we're working with partners to see how we can take these things forward. Thank you.
Super stuff, Reg. Thanks very much for that. Great stuff. We have had a couple more questions. I think the one thing for me is that, you know, from what you've shown us there and the capability, looks brilliant, and a lot of us have been thinking about these sort of things. One obvious question for me is, like, as good as it all looks, you're thinking, well, how much is all this going to cost? You know, and so it's, you know, and one of the questions is about funding. You know, so where's the funding going to come from? Who's supporting this? Can you answer that one?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of different ways of doing this. And one thing that we have done in developing this program is, because we've looked to see what partners' ambitions are, looked to see what different organisations are doing, what we are finding is there is a willingness for some organisations to put some initial investment in. And because we're presenting them, there are organisations that are coming in and saying, you know, we've got an investment pot. If there's a right set of conditions here, we will invest. So, for example, we're having conversations with an investment company, a pension fund basically, who are saying that we will provide all the fibre connectivity to all your social homes, for example, and you can deliver the smart devices on it. So they will invest in the infrastructure, and for us it's an opportunity then to look at the application side. That's one way of doing this. The other way is things like the UK Prosperity Fund. That's a replacement of some of Horizon 2020 funding. That is an opportunity for us to bid into that money to be able to do those kind of capabilities through that. Also, the Combined Authority has attracted funding, the Levelling Up funds, for example. Birmingham, again, and the West Midlands region has attracted £33 million worth of innovation funding, which is a pot that we can bid into. So some of these things are going into that pot of money. As I say, so there's different opportunities to attract funding in that way, working with market, but there will be some business cases that we've got to put together to make sure that we can present the right conditions for the investment to take place. So that's what we're, for example, we're working on a model around full fibre, for example, and through that process, we know that we have some assets in the city and we know we need to replace our wide area network services and the connections. We could potentially use that as a leverage to get in 10 times much from the market who will invest in the infrastructure, because they see an opportunity for Birmingham to be an anchor tenant that enables the rest of their infrastructure to be funded over a long period of time. So there are different models for different things, and the sort of what we've tried to do is, certainly for some of the larger projects, is to pull together a high-level business proposal that shows what the economic benefits could be, that shows what the investment opportunities are, and what the returns for some of the organisations could be. And that's the approach we're adopting at the moment.
Okay, and just following up, there's a question about quick wins. What do you see as sort of any quick wins in this space?
So I think some of the quick wins are certainly the broadband in tower blocks. We're working on that. Clearly, that is a marketplace intervention. Again, that's costing the city nothing, but we've attracted different organisations to create that. So that's piggybacking off other investments that are taking place. We're doing things like understanding what a digital neighbourhood could be. So that's a piece of work that we've got working and piggybacking off things that are happening in some of our neighbourhoods, such as the Northfield neighbourhood, to see how we could digitise that, and which is a quick capability that could be built into business plans. We're looking at that digital twin. I think the digital twin as a concept can be fed into the smart city region. That could be a quick win for us in terms of getting that off the ground as a model of different things to happen around the city. So there's a number of early wins here, but a lot of these programs will be, 3 to 4 years in the development and delivery. And clearly some of these sort of proof of concepts, I should mention that we've got that proof of concept around the potholes. That's happening now, working with Kier and transportation highways people to see how that works. We've got wins around the potential DIPS project for digital innovation to see how some of those businesses can actually develop applications. And we've been working with our procurement people to see how we can bring that innovation in. And there are routes to bring in innovation, which in the past had been really difficult to do with entrepreneurship organisations. So those are the type of things I think would be early wins for us.
And it would be good to, to get clear visibility of what's going on, because as you know, Raj, there is a lot going on across the organisation, and there's different programs of work, and I think one of the challenges for the organisation is is sometimes linking these things together or being aware of what's going on in the different directorates and different services. And to that end, Shiraz has asked a question. Do you want to raise your question, Shiraz, directly to Raj?
I can do, Tom, sorry. So my question was more around, you know, on the customer program, we're kind of like doing a lot of user research and discoveries. There's initiatives like you've just spoke about around, you know, having that CCTV imaging, which can help us, you know, diagnose that there's a pothole there and almost act as a prevention, you know, before it's actually reported or complained about by our citizens, kind of thing, which, you know, is something that, you know, was identified within the program. So it was just, what's the route in? Because, you know, clearly we'll have things that can help, you know, better our customer experience through initiatives that the Smart City will deliver. And there may be some ideas that we probably come up with, which, you know, we would want to feed into the Smart Cities program and kind of like see how they could be delivered for us, kind of thing. So what was the route? I was just trying to understand the route in to have those discussions and sharing of things that were happening.
No, it's a really great question. And really the current route is me at the moment, because as I say, it is a nascent program. We are establishing our team. Once our team's in place, we will start building that capacity together, but that's the routine at the moment. What we are going to be doing as part of that governance structure I talked about is creating what we call active groups, active agents, which will be looking at different sectors, working a partnership approach to see how we can take some of these ideas forward and how they link in to other ideas in that field. So we are actually making sure that they connect together. But as I say, because it's early days for a year and we are still developing our capability, once we've got that capability in place, we will start linking much more closely with yourselves. And we just want to make sure that, that there is that integration of both what's happening at the city level, but what's happening at the council level, and clearly people like Tom and the other Tom and James's team will be looking at how we can support the internal transformation, and likewise, you know, if there are things that you're doing that could impact on the city, we'd love to know about them. And clearly, if there are things that we're doing that could impact on this council program, we will want to come back to yourselves from the customer services approach and make sure you're fully aware of them. But these are early days yet, and I think some of those linkages need to be more firmed up. Yeah, sorry, just one other thing, Tom, if I can.
Yeah, carry on. Yeah.
So Raj, you talked about CCTV imaging and diagnosing things like, you know, potholes and graffiti and fly tipping. I know, and I can, if you want, put you in touch with Swindon Council, who are actually using that technology at the moment for a number of services within the authority, kind of thing. So, you know, it'd probably be worth just kind of like seeing what they've done and how far they've gone with, and that will kind of like inform what we're trying to do as well.
Yeah, no, that'd be really good. I mean, some of the capabilities we have with the APNR cameras that we have, I think there's 150 APNR cameras across the West Midlands. We're only using a really small percentage of the capability and the data that we're collecting off those at the moment. So there's real opportunities to do different things, more being integrated.
Yeah, sorry, Raj. I think they're using their bin lorries as well. So if you look at what actually hits every single road in Birmingham on a weekly basis, it's our bin lorries, and they've put in APNR cameras on the actual bin lorries. So as they're going down the roads, it's scanning for potholes, graffiti, fly tipping, for example, and then automatically bringing that back in, and it's reporting and integrating back into line of business systems. And if we can surface that back, that information to the citizen, it'll certainly reduce demand from our service perspective in terms of new reports, because they can see that we already know about it and it's been planned or it's due to be fixed. But also from a contact center perspective as well, you know, it'll kind of like help reduce demand there, because that's information we already know and we're surfacing back to the customer before they actually report it.
No, that's one idea. What we're doing with that particular project is working with Kia at the moment. So with Kia, what they're doing is using their vehicles that they go out and track things and to actually start mapping that out. What we want to do is prove the technology. And there are lots of different types of technology that does this, and I think there's been loads of different types of proof of concepts around this area, and Swindon's just one of them. What we're trying to do is minimise the amount of infrastructure we need to buy, so it becomes almost as a service type of approach. So the model we're trialling with this particular organisation is just a software model where you can use anybody's mobile phone. So normal mobile phones, which is using edge computing capabilities. So we're not using huge amount of bandwidth or anything like that, but provides all that data to us at the edge that can be used. So absolutely the right types of approach. What we want to do is make sure the models that we have are future-proof models, and that minimises the risk of outlay and reduces the exposure of any additional funding for us. So absolutely always willing to look at different models, but we are taking that into consideration about how we minimise the cost to us and minimise the risk.
Thanks, Raj. Just last couple of questions, conscious of time. I have to be probably fairly quick here. What's technological advancements and digital innovation is viewed largely positively? There's a question about people being displaced from low-skilled jobs maybe as a result of these advancements.
Yeah, I mean, there's always been talk about that, but a lot of the evidence does show that technology actually creates more jobs than we're losing at the moment. So there is an opportunity that new jobs will be created. Yes, there will be some jobs displaced, and that's why we think it's really important that we put those programs in place that support the reskilling of people. We can't get away from technology. Technology will happen. What we can do as a city is make sure that we put mechanisms in place so we can reskill people, create those opportunities for them so they can be part of the growth of the city.
Yep. Okay. And finally, the last question from Julie: is there a way that Birmingham citizens could access cheaper software through this program of work in any way, shape, or form, particularly as far as connectivity is concerned?
Yes. So certainly as part of the work we've been doing on digital inclusion, we've done a number of good things. Certainly on the device side, the City Council's been exemplar in some of the things it's been doing, recycling our devices. Previously, we would just sell them off and have them shipped away, but now we're actually recycling our devices. So that's one thing around hardware that we're providing. And with that hardware, we are providing people with the knowledge how to download software for those systems. But as part of that program, we've also started talking to different organisations around data, for example, and we've created a partnership with Good Things Foundation and organisations like Virgin, who are creating data banks that enables us to access free data from those organisations, and those provide that into the communities to support them with their connectivity needs. So as I say, because it's an early program, these are things that we've started uncovering, exploring the opportunity, and we know there's other organisations out there that are willing to work with us to explore those options and take that further forward. So early days, but I can see if we're successful in laying the foundations and we're successful in bringing the right organisations together, there will be new opportunities that emerge as this programme matures.
Super stuff. Great. Well, we'll have to draw a line there. So firstly, can I thank Raj for the time and preparation he's obviously put into this preparation. Looking at a lot of the comments, it's been really positively received, and there's been a few suggestions of other things that can be done. So thanks, Raj, very much for that. And there is the recording of today's session. So if anybody wants to follow up on any of those items or share them with colleagues, please do. But thank you everybody for attending, and thank you, Raj.
No, thank everybody for their interest. To be honest with you, it is nice to see that as a city we're really making some real inroads in supporting our wider citizens' ambitions. So thank you everybody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Raj.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Raj. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.